30-06 John here, and today what I want to talk about is 44 Magnum plus P. What is it? What guns should be using it? Also, some of the precautions that I take when I load up my 44 Magnum bear loads. So keep on watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Picking and deciding what ammunition to use for your 44 Magnum for bear defense, you would think it would be a pretty simple decision. It's not. There's a lot of different bullets out there. There's also something called the 44 Magnum plus P. This cartridge right here, I hand loaded it. It's a little bit longer than the other two here. In some guns, this may be too long to fit in the cylinder without jamming up the gun. So that's usually what they talk about mostly when they talk about 44 Magnum plus P. They load them a little bit longer to fit into some of the newer guns. Something like a Ruger Red Hawk here, like this one here, Super Red Hawk. The Colt Anaconda has a long cylinder. The Dan Wesson, they don't make those anymore, but those have a long cylinder. The ones that really don't have a longer cylinder are the Smith & Wesson 29s. They're just a little bit too short. It's about like a Black Hawk or a Super Black Hawk. This is hard to see, but this is a printout of the SAMI spec for 44 Magnum. There is no 44 Magnum plus P, so when a manufacturer labels their ammunition 44 Magnum plus P, you're relying on their reputation if that ammunition is safe to shoot in your gun or not. Here's a printout from Garrett Cartridges of Texas with their 44 Magnum plus P hammerhead load. They have a lot of good information on here, and of course they say right here, safe only in Ruger Red Hawk, Super Red Hawk, Taurus Raging Bull, and Dan Wesson revolvers. There's no mention of the Super Black Hawk, no mention of the Smith & Wesson 29 series. I have here my 4-inch Red Hawk and my 5.5-inch Super Black Hawk. And even though they look pretty close, the cylinders look pretty close in size, the Red Hawk cylinder is actually a bit longer. Here's a 320 grain hard cast lead dummy round, no primer in it. When I put it into the Super Black Hawk cylinder, hold it back up against there, you could see it. Let me guess if we get it there. You can see how close the bullet comes to the front of the cylinder. That's pretty close. If there's any creep, if the bullet jumps the crimp, creeps forward, that could jam up the gun. Now if we take the same dummy round and put it into the Red Hawk cylinder, plop that in, hold it back against here, you can see it still sticks up there, but it's back there a little bit further. It's about a 30 thousandths longer cylinder in the Red Hawk compared to the Super Black Hawk. And then the Super Red Hawk and the Colt Anaconda, I think they have a little bit longer cylinder also. A lot of people use factory ammunition for bear defense and hunting, and that's fine. But they also use that for a reason for not hand loading, because they say that it's more reliable. It depends on how the quality of the hand load, of the experience of the hand loader. As an example, this right here, let's see if it'll focus in here. As an example, this right here is a factory 9mm round. This is a Herter's brand. Pretty sure it's made by Winchester. But when you look at where the primer should be, it doesn't have a primer. Not only does it not have a primer, it doesn't have a flash hole in it. So even if it had a primer, it wouldn't fire. I found this out of a box of Herder's 9mm ammunition, oh, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago. So when people tell me that factory ammunition is more reliable, most of the time it is, but not 100%. Also, I had experience with someone at the range. This is a few years ago. He shot a 450 Casull with factory Bear ammunition. When he fired, it sounded like a squib. The bullet jumped the crimp, and it was halfway stuck in the barrel and half in the cylinder. Locked the gun right up. I was actually helping him at the range house. We knocked the bullet back into the case, opened up the cylinder, popped the bullet, popped the cartridge out, pulled the bullet out, and found out that there was no powder inside the case. That was a factory 454 Casull Bear load, loaded from a smaller but still nationwide ammunition company. To me, the most important single thing for ammunition is the primer. So all of my primers are either wrapped in gallon freezer style storage bags, or I keep them in plastic totes. Let me zoom back out. I don't know as far as it's going to go. I keep them in plastic style totes here so they don't get any type of oil or humidity on them. I'm still shooting primers I bought when Clinton was president. Every piece of brass that I use, I inspect it, make sure it looks okay, no corrosion on it, no split neck. Just looks like a good piece of brass. A lot of my brass has been fired many times. For my loads, bear loads, I always clean the primer pocket with a little tool. Get rid of any type of all the residue ash in there. After the primer pocket is clean, of course, I seat the primer. I always make sure that it feels like it's seated good. Also, after the primer is seated, run my hand across there. That primer should be filled just below flush. I think spec is 3 to 5 thousandths below the backlit brass there. When you put your powder in, you want to make sure that the powder level looks correct. It's hard to see here. Let me get a flashlight on here. There we go. Make sure the powder level looks correct. You don't want to double charge. Of course, I'm using Winchester 296. It's so hard to double charge that. But you want to make sure that your powder level looks good. So the last steps are seating the bullet and crimping. I do that in 2 separate steps. I'm using this on my Lee turret press. I'm using a RCBS 44 Magnum die set, but I'm using a Lee factory crimp die for the crimp. Make sure you got a good crimp there. You don't want that bullet to be jumping the crimp. This cartridge looks good. Also, I like to check to make sure that the rounds actually fit in the cylinder. Make sure they aren't overly tight. These look fine. Here's my target from the range. Shot at 7 yards with my 4-inch Red Hawk. My load is the 310 hard cast gas check true shot bullet. 20.2 grains of Winchester 296 powder, CCI large pistol magnum primer, mixed brass. Also, it is crimped at the cannula. The cartridge overall length was 1.615 inches. My first few shots here, I had to sight the gun in. I was shooting a little bit too high. Knocked it down. I made a nice 5-shot group of 1 1/8 inches. Centered right there. This was at 7 yards. My average velocity was right where I wanted it, 1,218 feet per second. After I verified zero and the rounds shot okay, I did some timed shots using a timer, 1.5 seconds, 7 yards, singles, double action. Seemed to shoot pretty good. Ammunition for your 44 Magnum, just make sure that it could take the 44 Magnum Plus P ammo. As I said earlier, there's no specification on that. You have to rely on the manufacturer's information if it's safe in your gun or not. If you're going to hand load, take extra precautions there. Make sure you're making reliable ammunition. Make sure you get some practice in. That's all that I have for today, everyone. Hey, thanks for watching. Everyone stay safe and have a nice day.